Hello, and welcome to today's webinar, The Urgent Care Playbook, How to Win, 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 No Matter What. My name is Samantha Burke, and I am NERUCA's Administrative Director. Before we get started, I'd like to go over a few housekeeping items today. Today's webinar is being recorded, and questions will be addressed at the end of the presentation. We invite you to submit your questions using the Q&A box. For those who don't know, NERUCA is in its 12th year of existence, and today we provide grassroots local representation in partnership with UCA's National Strength. We tackle legislative issues at the state level. We work to integrate urgent care medicine into broader public health initiatives. And we provide education and advocacy for urgent care medicine in the Northeast. And we do this through programming, including today's webinar and our annual conference, which is our signature event of the year. Our next conference will be held in Foxwoods Resort and Casino in Connecticut from September 28th to the 30th. And lastly, I would like to thank our platinum sponsors for their continuing support. Aptitude Medical Systems, BD, Exdion, HealthTrack RX, Stat Biomedical, Medline, and last but not least, today's sponsor, Solv. Those who are interested in either sponsoring, exhibiting, or speaking should be receiving communications shortly. Please feel free to always email us at admin@neruca.org with any questions and comments you may have. And with that, it is my distinct pleasure to introduce you to April Gillum. Take it away, April.
Thank you so much, Samantha. Well, I want to welcome you to this webinar. Samantha did a great job doing the initial intro, and I want to give a nod to this title. So in 2010, DJ Khaled and a host of his singing partners released a song called All I Do Is Win. And at the time, I was on a hip hop team in college, and we did a dance to this actually in front of the judges for So You Think You Can Dance at a convention called The Pulse, which is now defunct. But that is my subtle nod to my college days and DJ Khaled, All I Do Is Win. And that's what we're going to talk about today is how to win in this extremely complicated healthcare and urgent care environment that we are in today. So let's talk about our agenda. I just want to set the tone for what we're going to talk about today. So I'll give you a brief intro. We're going to get into our win the day strategies, which I am so passionate about. We'll get into some key takeaways and a Q&A, and then we'll give you some resources at the end. So just a little bit about Solv, the company that I come from. We are the practice growth co-pilot for urgent care and on-demand care centers across the nation. We are trusted by over 2,000 urgent care centers across the United States, including some of the largest urgent care companies in the United States, many that are in the Northeast. So what we are really proud about, and I'm also really proud about, is you can think about us as everything but the EHR, powered by AI native tools and focused on consumer experiences. In fact, when I first came to Solv, and I used to be a Solv client before I came to Solv, we had AI back then. We actually had to stop calling it AI. We had to call it smart queuing because AI scared people back in the day. They were like, what? AI. And now we can be really open about it. And we've continued to develop out our platform in an AI native way to develop more tools to help urgent care centers go faster and be more efficient and free up cognitive load for their staff and their teams. So just a little bit more about our AI platform. We help your team work more efficiently with automation, complemented by AI capabilities. So our goal is to make healthcare experiences more human, not to replace the humans, because human touch is really important in healthcare. And so the goal is to make your team more productive and efficient while improving that patient experience and that one-to-one touch. So we're continually investing in AI so our platform can proactively take on tasks off of your team, as well as recommendations to help optimize your business, especially when margins are so tight right now. So over time, that will allow the technology to function more autonomously and at a larger scale than it is today. So our ethos as a company is to do what we call skip the landline. As a partner with Solv, you'll help shape and get first access to advancements that are transformative to your business. Our latest advancement that we are actually doing a larger debut for this weekend at the Urgent Care Association convention in Dallas is our voice agent product. So if you're going to be there in Dallas, come see us, come get a demo of it. I'm really excited about it because it is native to our product. It is very powerful. So this is what you all came for, is we're going to be talking about our playbook, our strategies. So how do we win in an extremely complicated urgent care landscape? At Solv, we say, let's say the hard thing out loud. And a lot of time in healthcare, we don't do that. We complain behind closed doors, or maybe in the good old boys club. I know NERUCA, like that's one of our favorite things to do is at night, we will get some whiskey and sit down and we will talk about the hard things. But let's say the hard thing out loud right now. So leading urgent care centers is really hard. It's harder than it's ever been. I would argue that it's harder than it was in COVID, right? And it's because of the financial pressure, the staffing pressure, antiquated technology that is way behind the times, from other industries. And maybe you're facing pressure at home too. I don't know what's going on in your home life, but that can add insult to injury. And throughout COVID, what happened is many groups lost what it meant to be focused on what matters most in the day-to-day because they got lost in the sheets and the decks and the financials and the high volume that we were seeing. And really what matters most is the devil is in the details. Or better yet, the playbook for how to win is in the details of every day and every encounter. And sometimes like we don't like to do that. We don't like to get dirty and get back into the clinics and out of the sheets and the decks and the boardrooms to understand how to win. But if we do an analogy with sports, like I did this morning on LinkedIn, if we think about the greatest coaches who win, whether it's college football or it's, the NFL, they are in it every day on the field sweating with their team. They don't miss a practice unless they are deathly ill, right? That's why like Nick Saban, Bill Belichick, they are winning championships. They are winning the Super Bowl because they're on the field every day with these plays, right? So win the day. When we focus on winning each day, we win the week, we win the month, we win the year. And in doing this, we align our team, we stay ahead of our day, we don't leak patients, we don't have massive left without being seen, cancellations, all those things. We create time for friendly human greetings of our patients. We unlock time for that more complex work that needs to be done. And we win on door-to-door times and patient satisfaction, which keeps people coming back to us, which increases lifetime value of patients and yearly frequency of patients. Okay. So in order to win the day, we actually have to break down the strategy for each step in the door-to-door life cycle for walk-ins and book-aheads. And we actually see that book-aheads bring a lot more value to our organization than walk-ins. And not that walk-ins are second-class citizens, because they are not, but by educating our staff and educating our patient base on why they get more value out of being a book-ahead, we can actually win the day even more. And this is why. So I want you to study, screenshot all of the things, this slide, because this is really critical. So a lot of people don't actually properly measure their door-to-door times, and it's shocking to me. And it's because some patient management tools that measure door-to-door time don't actually measure from when the patient really hits the door to when they're discharged. A lot of patient management tools measure from the time that this patient is ready or when they are finished with registration until discharge. And so they're not capturing some of the patients that are leaving without being seen because they didn't finish registration or because Maybe that receptionist like, oh yeah, we can't see you. Nah. And that happens a ton, right? And so there's a lot of leakage that happens there. So when patients walk in and they don't have the opportunity to do a book ahead, those are the patients who wait longer and have a more extended intake time, which is this check-in to ready here. And the total wait time that a patient is in the waiting room is from the check-in to when they hit the exam. So often where I see a lag is from this ready to exam time, where you're waiting for an MA or a tech to call the patient back. And a lot of times it's just because people do not have the urgency to call a patient back, or because providers are saying, I only want to have one room full at a time. So your team should have a standing operating procedure where you have a certain amount of rooms turning per provider at a time, and your team is aligned to that. We'll talk more about that in a second. But so your walk-ins many times do have a longer door-to-door time because they haven't done pre-registration activities, and they haven't had the opportunity to do that, right? So for book aheads, they typically have a shorter check-in to ready time because they have the opportunity to do those registration activities before they hit the door. And we're able to turn those faster on intake time, right? So as long as your team is calling them back fast, and that really depends on your back office team, how fast they're pulling them, how fast they're turning them, then your intake time can be shortened, which can influence your door-to-door time if your back office team is working together and turning those rooms, okay? All right, let's talk about our strategies here. So I firmly believe in this. So winning in each segment of the door-to-door time really depends on this. So first, we want to encourage more book aheads. And this is for the sake of your patients. This is for the sake of your team in the clinic being able to have readiness to see the patients and do less work once they arrive. And you don't have that waiting room buzzing with patients who are starting to get upset because they have long wait times. And this is for your business too, to maximize capacity and volume. The next thing that I really encourage is a fast start. So I've seen in this post-COVID world that we are robbing Peter to pay Paul. So shortening the pre-clinic arrival times to 10 minutes or 5 minutes. Y'all, they only have time to open the door and turn on the computers if you do that. So I encourage for your staff to arrive at least 30 minutes early, if not 45 minutes early during peak seasons, so that you can process at least 2 hours of book aheads and stay 2 hours ahead throughout the day, so that when your book aheads arrive, great, we've already processed your paperwork. You're going to owe this much. And if they haven't done their pre-registration before arrival, that you can use an SMS text tool to ping them and say, hey, we need your insurance card. Or, hey, you haven't completed half of your paperwork, and encourage that patient to complete those activities before they arrive. And then it's a smooth process once they've arrived. But if your staff hasn't done that and you have a booking tool that has pre-registration included, digital paperwork, then you're doing yourself a disservice by having those tools because it's like they're just walking in, right? And then also, you need to accelerate eligibility and payments. So invest in a strong tool and process for running eligibility and collecting payments. You also have the opportunity to run eligibility prior to that patient arriving. You can actually, tell if they have a copay. If you're a clinic that actually estimates their patient responsibility and coinsurances, you can do that prior to arrival. There's so many of these activities that you can do prior to arrival if you have the tools to do so. Solv has many of these tools. And so if you want to talk to us about how we can help you there, we'd be happy to do it. This is something that I'm super passionate about. I've been doing these things since about 2016 because I worked for a private equity-backed company, was their COO, and we realized in order for us to thrive financially, we had to be doing these things. Back in the day, we were doing it on spreadsheets and through very disparate sources. And so if we could do this in 2016, how great would it be if you could do this through one click of a button with Solv, right? The other thing is clinic handoffs and visibility. This is where you've got to think like Bill Belichick. You've got to think like Nick Saban and have your team aligned and have them on the same team with clinical handoffs. So we need to align our clinical team to move patients efficiently while providing team-wide visibility into the status of that patient. We need to limit the handoffs. So all of the, I don't want to take my computer in the room, it's going to take away from my patient interaction. That's a lie y'all have been telling yourselves. When you're going in and out of a room, writing on a sticky note, first of all, you're exposing PHI. You're probably going to make a mistake. And there is no difference in writing on a sticky note and doing this and typing. If you took Mavis Beacon, like I did, you should be able to type and look at somebody. Okay. I'm telling y'all the hard truth right now. Say the hard thing out loud. God bless Mavis Beacon. And then we're going to close the loop, right? So one of the most frustrating things that happens in urgent care centers and healthcare centers at large, it happens in the emergency department too, is not having a very specific person who is going to complete that visit. And so sometimes patients stay in that urgent care exam room because it's not clear whether the provider is going to close the loop on and discharge the patient or whether it's the MA. And so have a really clear closer of that visit and have a line that you use to discharge the patient so that that door-to-door time it completes, and understand who is pressing the button of discharge, whether it's in the EHR or it's in a tool like Solv. Because if you're measuring your people and you're holding them accountable to it, and some people are even doing incentive plans or bonuses around this, it needs to be really, really tight. And the last reason for that is if you're doing any sort of checkout payment for fee-for-service plans, has to be tight, y'all. We need to have some tight discharge plans. All right, so let's get a little bit deeper into this. And so the first one here, why you should drive more book aheads, is it reduces overall door-to-door times and it helps load balance across clinics if you do have multiple sites that are in close regional proximity. So first and foremost, we encourage using signage to encourage book aheads, using friendly signs, okay? Bullet points, no more than 3 bullet points. We have a tendency in healthcare to use too many words and use taped paper signs in all caps. That's my biggest pet peeve, y'all. Needs to be nice sign, needs to be visible and friendly. And give them the, why should I care about booking ahead? Because it's going to help you go faster. People don't want to wait, especially as consumers have put more pressure and had more expectations on their healthcare experiences. You also want to optimize your clinic schedule settings to create more same day and real-time availability. I'll show you a graph on that in just one moment. And then you want to train your staff, whether it's your receptionist or maybe you have some greeters during high volume times, to explain that book ahead option for your walk-ins of, hey, now your information is saved. Next time you can book ahead online and you will go faster and have to wait less in this waiting room so that their light bulbs are coming on. And you can say, hey, you're always welcome to walk in, but I'd love for you to have this better experience next time. And so the insights here, book ahead patients see 52% less wait times than walk-ins. And this is across the Solv book of business again. And then over time, 20% of walk-in patients switch to book aheads in our Solv data, just as an FYI to you. So that graph that I was going to show you is right here. So the majority of visits are booked just hours in advance. So, the nature of illness oftentimes spikes at nighttime. And many of our clinics open at 8, 9 a.m. So 50% of bookings are made within just 2 hours of the visit time, and 75% of bookings are made within just 8 hours. Now, Solv, our software, we do not do search engine marketing, which means like we don't do paid ads, right? That's something that we absolutely don't do. A lot of people get confused about that, thinking that we are trying to bid against their Google ads. Again, we absolutely don't do that. But I was shocked to learn that many groups do not turn on their Google ads during their non-open hours. Well, that's actually an unwise decision because as a mom, like my kid was sick yesterday. He woke up at 4 a.m. sick. So if I'm a mom going to Google thinking, where can I be seen at 8 a.m. and your Google ads are turned off, then you're losing. I'm just putting it out there. Now, you want to be visible on all what we call consumer funnels on a search engine because the consumer in 2025, most of them, even if they're your repeat patient, they're not going directly to your website. I'll use my former business as an example. They're going to Google and typing in urgent care for kids, right? But you want to be the top Google ad. You want to be top on the organic search engine. You want to be top on the maps. You want to be top on Google Places, and you want to have a booking button on each one of those, right? So you want to win on all of those consumer funnel surfaces. Um, and if you have one of those shut off because you think you don't need to have it on in the middle of the night and it's 2 hours before you open, then you're going to lose. And this graph shows you why. Okay. Book aheads, again, enable a fast start. So completing that pre-intake process, like we were talking about, and the associated activities that your staff can do prior to arrival, and really making sure that they stay what I call 2 hours ahead of those book aheads is going to enable them to not feel so burdened and have such a high cognitive load when the patients arrive, especially during peak seasons like respiratory season where things really can get out of control in the waiting room. And then that causes patient attrition. So cancellations, left without being seen, patient experience issues where people are yelling in the waiting room, all of those things. So you want to make sure that you are completing all of your pre-intake activities. So this is paperwork, consents, IDs, card on file, all of those things. Making sure that you are inspecting those elements and making sure they're correctly populated. If you have a booking tool, for instance, Solv, we transfer all of those things to the EHR. And so you want to make sure, just take a peek and make sure that they all landed there, right? So this is a screenshot of our actual tool, and we have icons there. And you can see just visually, did that patient complete this action or is there something missing? And so we have a tool that you can hit the SMS button and actually message that patient in the same thread that they're seeing their booking information and send them a quick reply and say, hey, can you make sure that you upload your insurance card or upload your card on file, things like that, so that it's really quick and easy for your front desk to complete those actions. And just some data insights, because data is important to inform how we operate. Book ahead patients see 50% faster intakes. So some key levers that you can take for reducing intake times, again, shifting to book aheads, having saved profiles for your patients, so that it's really quick and easy for them to be able to rebook with you in just a few taps, and then also completing those pre-intake activities. So here's some Solv network intake times. So for our top quartile of performers, that for book aheads, they have a 5-minute intake time. And so that's once they've arrived to the clinic. And that might be, hey, I am collecting your payment. If you haven't already paid, I am having a conversation with you about why you owe this payment. For walk-ins, it looks more like 10 minutes. And then for our top decile, which is top 10%, it's 3 minutes and then 8 minutes for walk-ins. So, think about where you stand in this equation and whether you're actually really measuring it the same way we measure it, which is not from I've already registered and I'm waiting to be called back. A lot of tools do that. Are you really measuring from the time that they hit the door to when they've completed those activities? Okay. All right, and then the next one that I feel so passionately about, because this is what really kills that intake time, and it's frustrating for the front desk and it's frustrating for the patient too. I was recently in a clinic with my daughter, and I heard two receptionists behind me, and they were both on the phone trying to get eligibility with payers because the real-time eligibility was down. And one of them said to the other, if we didn't have to do this, this could go so much faster. So running eligibility and capturing payment information before arrival makes such a meaningful difference in speed to collect. And I knew that the ladies behind me, respect to them because they were doing the hardest job in the building, they had waited until we arrived to verify eligibility for my daughter. And then they had to call, which really stinks, right? And so, you know, something that you want to try to do for your book ahead patients when you have the opportunity to is to run that real-time eligibility. Verify the benefits are active and eligible for the services, and then try to confirm copay or estimate patient responsibility if that is a policy of your practice. I really encourage you to estimate patient responsibility or coinsurance, because every day that that money is not in your bank is time wasted, in my opinion. So insight here, leverage insurance cards for book ahead patients to pre-process insurance eligibility. And if real-time eligibility returns is inactive or incorrect, use that SMS tool to contact the patient prior to arrival. I'm going to call something out really quickly. I know New York State recently, I want to say in October of 2024, released a policy that they said applied to emergency departments, but they extended it to urgent cares, that card on file could not be required. You can still ask for card on file so that patients are not surprised by medical bills. You can still use some what I would call soft language, that's consumer friendly language that says, hey, we would never want to surprise you with a bill. This is a convenient billing friendly way to pay. And, you know, this is how we will give you a heads up that we're about to charge you for your visit. We'll give you this many days to call us or dispute before we charge you. It's a, you know, we'll text you, all of these things. So if you want to talk more about that, we're happy to do that. We do have partners in New York because we know that that is a recent regulation that has come out in New York, and I don't believe it's been extended to New Jersey yet. Please correct me if I'm wrong. But I know New Jersey a lot of times will follow suit with whatever New York does. All right, and then, you know, collecting upfront is time consuming and error prone today. And this is just kind of an algorithm of what it looks like. So today, manually input the patient info into an eligibility tool. Figure out which payer to request benefits from. Then track down the CPT code and the corresponding payer fee schedule if you have it. A lot of times it's just in a spreadsheet like I was talking about earlier. Then you got to do the math. If it's coinsurance deductible, then you've got to validate the plan is active. Understand which benefits apply to the current visit. Do you have place of service 20 or 11? Maybe you have both and you're trying to figure out which one you're using for which plan. Factor in the complexities. So is this provider actually credentialed right now? Is it a new hire? Is this out of network? Can we actually get paid for this? Calculate the final number and then communicate the benefits and the charges to the patient. And oh, by the way, this employee, you're paying however many dollars an hour, and they could also work at Starbucks. Do they actually care to communicate in the right way? Maybe they care, but they might not have the tools to communicate. This is really hard, right? Especially if there's 20 other patients behind them and they're trying to figure out in real time. Okay. So Solv has created a tool called ClearPay, and it automates that upfront collection using generative AI so that you can get paid faster. And this cognitive load for your staff as well as for the patient is reduced. It makes things very clear. That's why we call it ClearPay, for everybody. And I'm very passionate about it because the world needs it, because healthcare is hard. And that's why we've been building it for a long time. So, our goal here is to have a transformative experience for patients and for your staff, including this cost estimate here at or before the visit. So this is radical transparency, and it's not the form of transparency that is, oh, we're going to go price shopping here. They can't have it without actually running their benefits and having a visit with you. So again, not price shopping. So we're using this generative AI to analyze your data and provide upfront cost estimates at the time of service. So Solv is automatically checking real-time eligibility so that your staff doesn't need to navigate to separate systems or manually enter insurance information. This confirms what the plan is, if it's active, and tells key information like where they're at in their deductible, which, a lot of patients are confused about that. And because we train our AI on your payer contracts as well as your rules, your clinical rules, and any standard operating procedures that you might have about like narrow networks and things like that, as it pertains to billing, we can use that information to generate more accurate upfront cost estimates. And because it's AI based, it gets smarter over time. Like if you're getting denials for certain CPT codes or denials for certain narrow networks, it learns over time. And so we're able to train it to handle more nuanced cases and really be tailored to your operations and to your billing workflow. And again, this is all happening automatically. So your staff isn't pulling up multiple screens and spreadsheets and binders and all the things that have happened in the past, with payer contracts and punching in numbers into a calculator and guessing and having these really tense conversations up front. One of the things that I really enjoy about it is that it gives your staff a script to say to the patient to explain what they owe to them. And if they want, they can actually text the patient that same exact explainer so that they're seeing the same thing. It doesn't look like your front desk has made something up. They actually get the same exact thing to the patient, which I feel like brings more trust to your center and more trust to the human working at the front desk. So, that's the other thing is clear, kind communication is not a nice to have. It's critical to deliver a great experience and accelerate your throughput because, again, these front desk friction moments are what keep people behind. So I really encourage you to greet all patients when they come through the door, especially walk-ins, immediately to let them know how they can get checked in, how they can get registered, and what their expectations are. Train your staff on specific SLAs. If you don't know what SLA is, it's a service level agreement. So how much time should somebody be waiting before you go help them? Or how much time should that tech or MA be expected to call a patient back? Or how many rooms should be filled at one time? Those are service level agreements, to activate the patient, whether to pay, complete paperwork, all of those things. And then you want to monitor the paperwork completion in your queue or wherever you're monitoring that. If you're not using Solv, another software, you want to monitor those metrics. And then if somebody's out in the waiting room, especially a walk-in patient, for more than 5 minutes and they're like fiddling with their phone or the paperwork and they look like they're stuck, the staff should offer to help because it's those patients who will sit there for 20, 30 minutes and get so frustrated and walk out. So be watching and see who needs help and just communicate. There may be a language or a site or just some sort of barrier that, sometimes people even have reading barriers. And so we need to be offering to help when needed in the right way. Some insights here. 30 to 50% of negative healthcare reviews can be resolved by just better front desk communication. And I'm sure you see that in your reviews, that most of the negative reviews are not about the providers. They are actually other things that mainly stem at the front desk. And I love this quote by Maya Angelou that is, I've learned that people will forget what you said, forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. Okay, so a few other slides I want to go through with you. Um, Juggling a lot of tasks may leave your front desk feeling overwhelmed and take away from that focus in clinic patients. And this is also what has caused an incredible amount of attrition and turnover in urgent care in general. Because if they can go to, I always use these examples, if they can go work at Starbucks or Seven Brew or Target and not have the cognitive load, why not if they're getting paid the same, right? So 3 to 4 hours of a 12-hour shift is dedicated to phone calls and related tasks. And dealing with the phones is overwhelming when I'm juggling patients in the waiting room. These are real quotes from real people. One thing that we consistently hear from urgent care operators is that phone calls are just overwhelming and that they either are not answering them, they're dropping a lot of them, or they're putting people on hold and just leaving them there into perpetuity. They're just bombarded with calls every day. A lot of them are sales calls, but many are patients, and then it breaks a relationship that they might have had in the clinic. But it's not just about answering the call, it's the entire workflow that follows. So staff have to determine who to forward it to, take notes, send follow-ups, log details into their EMR, and often chase down the right person to handle the next steps. And it's really time consuming. It's a manual process that pulls focus from patient care. So does this breakdown feel right to you? And how does it feel in your clinic? You might have a phone tree, a traditional IVR. Do you feel like it's more? Do you feel like it's less? I know I'm asking a rhetorical question. Um, but I'm really excited that Solv has released our voice agent product and we're showing it at UCA this year because I have had the opportunity to test it, to use it multiple times, and this actually, it sounds like a real human. She's empathetic. Her name's Maya. She's empathetic. She really not only resolves the issue, like whatever it is, whether I'm calling to pay a bill, I'm calling to ask, hey, do you take this insurance? Can you see this service? I called her frantically, trying to understand if she could, my daughter cut herself and if, the center could do a laceration repair, things like that. She was empathetic. She didn't give medical advice, but she answered in the right way and things like that. So I was so impressed with the way that this voice agent handled my issues every single time I tested her. And it was not a phone tree. It wasn't like, click here, go here, and still diverting me to a human. I'm really excited about what this can do for urgent care in making sure that calls are properly resolved and not causing more cognitive load for clinics. Okay, just a few other things. Let's talk about golden hour. Strong front desk and clinical execution in the first hour of the day sets the tone for the rest of your day. You probably know exactly what I'm talking about. If you have a chaotic first hour of the day, rest day off the rails. It's a bad day, right? If you have receptionist shows up 30 minutes late, nobody's prepared to work for the day, the team vibe is off, the rest of the day is off. People are pissed, right? So start the day having worked through at least 2 hours of those book heads. Get ahead of the day. Make sure the team is arriving on time. Like I say, butts in the seats, ready to go. I also recommend opening the doors 2 to 3 minutes early or even 5 minutes early so that the clinical team calls back your first patient of the day on time. If your first booking of the day is at 8 a.m. and you're not calling them back until 8:05 or 8:10, the day is already off to a bad start, right? And you want to maintain that 2-hour lead. Pull in help if you need to get back to that 2-hour lead. If you get that first and last hour of the day right, you will win the day, right? You will make sure that your team doesn't feel mega fatigued all the time. Yes, there will still be times that it's crazy and wild because that is the nature of urgent care, is peaks and valleys. But if you can nail the first and last hour of the day, people will feel radically better than chaos, right? So that's what I want to encourage you to do. Okay, and then this is the next thing. Make sure that your back office has visibility into patient throughput with agile handoffs. Before I go through this, what this does not mean is that the back office is seeing patients and saying, I don't want to see that patient. Call them and tell them they're not coming. That's not what it means. They need enough visibility to know who to call back and that they're ready. And that potentially if your provider sees, April Gillum has input a visit for chest pain, that provider has a list of things that they can call the patient and talk to them about. Because if I list chest pain, I'm probably not supposed to come to the urgent care, right? But we can't be calling, my 1 centimeter laceration and saying, I don't want to do that today. Okay. That's not what this means. So we want to create an expectation that the clinical team has this back office dashboard that they are quickly turning because they have this handoff dashboard that they know what's coming back to them, and that they are turning 2 or 3 rooms at a certain speed that they have an expectation to, not compromising clinical quality or patient experiences. And then identify 1 or 2 team members who call patients back based on, your volume and your staffing. And we want to create agile patient handoffs, not an assembly line. So, think about every single handoff that you have. So if your team is going in and out of rooms all of the time, again, my biggest pet peeve is not taking your laptop in the room and going in and out of the room a ton of times to do lab tests. If you can move your Sophia or whatever, Quidel, whoever you have your rapid testing into the room, it will make things go so much faster, right? If you have standing orders at certain times of the year or all year for certain things, try to move some of those rapid tests into the room so that they're not walking a bajillion steps. Every step is taking more door-to-door time, okay? Especially the whole in and out of the room for computer charting. God bless America. Please, please, please stop that. And then we want to document patient visits in the room, limit entries and exits when you can. It also makes the patient feel like they're going faster, because any dead time in the room, the patient feels like that is a second set of waiting. So they have their wait time in the waiting room, and then they have their wait time in the exam room. Any time that they feel like the MA or the tech or the provider is in the room with them, they feel like they're not waiting. So we want to limit that. All right, and then we want to stick the landing with strong exit procedures like we mentioned earlier. So stay on top of your door-to-door time statuses. Be managing those. These are the stopwatch of measuring your success. Regularly check your hourly pace. If your team is not pacing to your goal, let's say that your door-to-door time goal is 45 minutes or 50 minutes, and they're not pacing to that, and patient wait times are growing, action on discharging patients to get back on track. Because a lot of times why we're not pacing to goal is because somebody's just not pressing the button. That's what I've found, is somebody is just not pressing the button. So we want to be clear on how the interaction ends. So what is that 1 sentence that lets the patient know, hey, your visit is complete. Let me walk you out to the front. If there's a checkout payment needed, we can add that on. And then we want to be clear on patient discharge roles and responsibilities. Who does that? Why do they do that? If, for instance, if the provider discharges during a certain scenario, when does that happen? If there is, let's say that patient needs an injection and the medical assistant or nurse is going to be the last touch, when does that happen? And clearly define that. And again, if there's a checkout payment, make sure that that's clearly defined to the patient so that you don't lose out on that revenue. Okay, let's go over our key takeaways, and I think we have enough time for some Q&A. All right, first, coming back to our playbook and coming back to Bill Belichick. We just had the NFL draft. That's why I keep on referring to him. And because of the New England Patriots. I know y'all love the Patriots, I think. And, just because I love college football, retired coach Nick Saban, daily wins drive operational excellence. So you've got to be out in the trenches, on the practice field, making sure that you have the reps in with your team. So small efficiencies compound over time, helps you win the week, win the month, win the quarter, win the year, win your P&Ls, okay? Your team is the engine to make this happen. The engine is not the spreadsheets. The engine is not the decks. The engine is not the boardrooms. You get to celebrate your team in the decks and the sheets in the boardroom, but the engine is your team. Okay. And then AI is the invisible thread. We are in a revolution, okay, of AI, and you need to get into the gig. AI agents support operations so that you can focus on care. You can bring humans and make them more human and human care because COVID took that away from us. And we had an opportunity to bring it back actually with AI, which seems counterintuitive, but it's not. And so if you have been scared of AI or reluctant to use it, get into it because it can transform your business. All right, just a couple other things. I'd love to connect with you. You can book 30 minutes with me and talk through your team's daily operations here at this QR code. We actually have a really cool tool that you can use. We have a content hub that will give you step-by-step guides on how to use ChatGPT for on-demand care workflows. One of my very favorite ones that is can be pretty radical for your business is if you have a bunch of standard operating procedures in PDFs or just in binders, you can upload them into ChatGPT and it will train on only your PDFs. And we'll show you how to do it so that your team could go to ChatGPT and be like, hey, do we take this insurance plan? Or, hey, I've got this scenario. What do I do? Like, what do we do with drug-seeking patients? What do I say to them? Um, Revolutionary, like so they don't have to go digging through binders. I encourage you, even if you're not a Solv client, even if you never plan to be, I would love for you to be, but go click on that QR code and teach yourself how to do it. You need it for sure. Okay, let's get into some Q&A. I think that this is the end of the deck. So let me see in our chat. Samantha, I think we had some questions. Will you queue me up for one of those?
Yeah, absolutely. Give me just a moment and I'll get those pulled up. Alrighty, so one question regarding credit card. So, I have not yet collected credit cards on file. How should I begin setting that expectation with clients, especially considering the new regulations in New York?
Yeah. So here's how I like to think about it. You would never go to a hotel or order DoorDash or get an Uber without putting your credit card on file, right? Why should your healthcare be any different? And so one way to look at it is, hey, we've gone cashless for your safety and ours. And so, while we're not going to require a credit card on file because of the New York State regulations, we'd like to ask you for a credit card on file so that whenever we adjudicate your claim, or you can say, we can see that you owe a $30 copay today. We're going to go ahead and collect that. We'd like to ask for a credit card on file because when we adjudicate your claim, there could be more patient responsibility. And we don't want to surprise you. And we also know that people don't like to receive paper bills in the mail. And so what we'll do is we will text you and let you know how much you owe. We will give you, you can say 48, 72 hours to, contact us or dispute it if you need to. And then we will run your card, but we will give you time to communicate with us. And so having some soft language like that, especially in New York, in other states at this time, from my understanding, you do not have to do that. You can actually require a credit card on file. But making sure that you have that holistic conversation, really giving them the similarities to other consumer products that they use every day. Like, even a lot of restaurants. Like I know Chick-fil-A is often viewed as a little bit but people use Chick-fil-A and Chick-fil-A has their card on file. Starbucks has my card on file. Many of the consumer businesses that we frequent every day have our card on file and people don't balk at it. So that's how I really like to present it is, hey, you wouldn't go to a hotel without them having your card on file. You wouldn't get in an Uber without them having a card on file or DoorDash. So it's just more of an expectation setting.
Thank you so much for sharing. We've got another question, and this one's largely around motivating your team. So, a key part of this presentation is aligning the team to win the day. If I want to change the standard operating procedure to ensure that we get a faster start, especially by processing our book ahead appointments before the day officially begins, how can I motivate my team to align with this change and start the work for the day prior?
There's a few different things. I'm going to mention three. The first of them is you must be present. So you can't do what I would call like a change management drop and then leave and disappear. And this is where people really make a mistake is they do um, the company email or they show up for a day and they're like, we're changing this SOP. If you don't comply, we're going to fire you or something like that. They do that really harsh language and then they disappear. They go back to the corporate office, the glass castle. That will never work. So you have to be the change. You have to model the change. And this is why I keep on referring to Bill and to Nick Saban is because they are on the field, right? They are coaching from the front. And so you've got to do that. You've got to get in the clinics. And I'm not saying that you have to be there 5, 7 days a week, but you have to be visible enough to where you are modeling this behavior for your team. And so if you don't know how hard it is for a receptionist to be a receptionist, then you got to figure out how hard it is. You've got to model it from the front. And, you can't be there every day if you're a CEO. So you have to have champions. So first of all, you've got to build your champion team who are going to champion your change management for you. So once you have become visible enough to lead from the front, you've got to build these champions. But you've also got to build the energy and the joy of the why. Because change management is hard, but showing them this is the value it's going to bring to you. This is the value it's going to bring to the patients. People want to feel like if people are afraid of change. So if you're going to change, what value is it going to bring to me? Really emphasize the value it's going to bring to each role in the clinic and the why behind it. And repetition is really important. So like, hey, receptionist, the reason why we're doing this for you is to make your life better in X, Y, and Z way. I noticed that these things were hard for you and all of your colleagues, and I want this for you. And so change is hard sometimes, but the reason we're changing is to ultimately make it better for you. And I want your feedback as we're changing. So like that's the last thing is as you're doing this change, ask for feedback. Know that a lot of it is going to be, I don't want change. And some people are going to nitpick and try to find things that are bad just because they don't want change. But there are going to be grains of valuable feedback that you should take during that change management. And you're also going to find your champions that way of people who you can really, really trust. So those are my probably top three things of you must lead from the front, you must find your champions, and you've got to get the valuable feedback. You've got to just really hype the people up as you're going through these motions. I would say fourth to that is have a very specific project plan of how you roll this out because you can't just blast information at people and expect them to just change overnight. It needs to be a step-by-step motion that is like intentional change management.
Perfect, perfect. And And again, thank you so much. I think you really spoke to it by saying explaining the why. I think oftentimes we're really good about explaining the what, but we often neglect the why. With just about 2 moments left, we'll go ahead and we'll wrap up. But of course, if you have any, questions that come to mind that maybe we didn't have the chance to get to today, please do feel free to send your questions and comments, of course, as well, to admin@neruca.org, and we'll make sure that we can get those addressed offline. And to April, thank you so much for a phenomenal presentation. And to Solv, thank you for partnering with us on such an important topic in urgent care medicine. It's really been a pleasure learning from you today. And to all of our attendees, thank you all for your time and for your attention during today's webinar. We hope that you found the session insightful and valuable. And again, if you have any questions, feel free to send those over to us because we're always happy to continue the conversation. Now, today's recording will be available. It'll be uploaded to our YouTube channel just shortly. So, for those that couldn't make it today, they're always able to watch that after the fact. Now, we really appreciate your participation and we look forward to seeing you at our next session, which will be on May 27th. So thank you so much, everyone. Have a great day.